Hello, I'm Arcega, and this is The Correspondence on Voice of America. And welcome back to the special inaugural edition of The Correspondence on Voice of America. I'm Arcega in Washington. Well, as U.S. President Barack Obama says goodbye to the White House, there's a mixed bag of opinions on his foreign policy record. They range from triumphant in the killing of al-Qaeda leader Osama bin Laden to harsh criticism on the perceived inaction by the president in the face of continuing turmoil in so many parts of the world. VOA White House correspondent Cindy Sain has our report. In other news now this week, the world has spoken, but China is having none of it. Beijing has dismissed a decision by an international court which ruled against China's territorial claims in the South China Sea. The decision at The Hague is a landmark case in the long-running disputes between China and several Southeast Asian nations. The ruling is legally binding, but as VOA's Henry Ridgewell reports, the court has no power to enforce it.
Beijing lays claim to a vast U-shaped line of jurisdiction in the South China Sea.
And welcome to Hashtag I'm Arcega. Thank you for joining us. Well, you know, after a year of fits and starts, it's beginning to look a lot like an economic recovery may actually be taking hold in the United States. That's a sentiment, of course, confirmed in part by the central bank's decision to raise interest rates for the first time since the financial crisis. But as you'll probably soon find out, the outlook for the global economy is not quite as clear. The big story as 2015 comes to a close was the Federal Reserve's decision to raise its benchmark lending rate by 0.25%.
And it reflects the committee's confidence that the economy will continue to strengthen.
And with that, allow me to introduce our panel, and we are lucky to have them. In our Washington studio, we have Dr. C. Fred Bergston. He's an American economist and founding director of the Peterson Institute for International Economics. In our New York studio, Carlton English is a writer and analyst covering banking and Wall Street for TheStreet.com. And from our New York City remote, Beth Ann Bovino is the chief economist at ratings agency Standard & Poor's. Welcome to all three of you. Thank you so much for joining us.
Great to be here.
And welcome back to The Correspondence on Voice of America. I'm Arcega in Washington. Well, you know, we pride ourselves as a nation of immigrants. And yet to date, no Muslim American immigrant has ever held national political office in the United States. Very few currently serve in local government. In fact, in the U.S. Congress right now, only 1%, that's 6 members, are immigrants. But in this election year, some Muslim Americans are trying to change that, campaigning for office at local, state, and national levels throughout the United States. VOA's Midwest correspondent Kane Faribaugh decided to take a closer look with a 30-minute documentary he produced called Faith in Freedom. Here's a brief excerpt from that documentary. So over the summer, you followed 4 Muslim Americans pursuing their dream of running for political office. Why did you feel it was important to tell their story?
Well, it's a story that really hasn't been told before. And even though many of the races that I was following have sort of culminated this summer, it's been a process that really began at the end of last year.
This is a weekend when Americans celebrate the country's 240th birthday, the 4th of July. And right here in the nation's capital, there's certainly no shortage of things to see and do. But you know, if you care to look a little bit closer, you might just learn a thing or two that aren't in the tourist brochures. VOA's Steve Miller has been profiling some of Washington's premier attractions in a web series he calls Did You Know? Here's a brief montage of some of the secrets Steve has uncovered.
As you can see, we are no longer in Washington. We've traveled out to Virginia and the Shenandoah Caverns. But did you know what truly makes the Shenandoah Caverns special is bacon.
You don't want to eat that cave bacon, trust me. But to tell us more about the secrets hidden inside Washington's most famous memorials and attractions, I am super pleased to welcome our very own Steve Miller. Yes. Greetings and salutations to you, my awesome friend. You sort of put a lot of us longtime D.C. residents to shame, because here you are, you've only been here a few months, and you've uncovered quite a number of secrets. What was your point in this? That is all the time we have, but I hope you have lots of time this weekend to go out and venture around the Washington area. We'll be back again next week for another edition of The Correspondents. Do remember to stay up to date with the latest news from around the world. All you have to do is check out voanews.com. You can catch all of our shows there. Just go to the programs tab on the upper right. We're also on Facebook and YouTube at VOA The Correspondents. I'm Mil Arcega. For now, so long from Washington.